All right, we are here to our final day reading Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I even wore my Hogwarts shirt this morning uh, because we are ending our book today. We had some great predictions, which is basically it's going to be the end of the year. Nishvita and Desiree both said that they're going to get off on the platform for where the train is. Tanish says, yeah, it's going to be the end of the year. Caden says Harry might start second year. So we're going to see what happens this year at the end of the book. And we are going to start by remembering what happened last chapter. We know that Quirrell was defeated by Harry, and so was Voldemort. Harry was hurt. We found out he almost died. We also learned a lot of information, which was that Harry's mother's love was what protected Harry, which I think is lovely. And we learned too that it was Dumbledore who gave Harry that cloak because it was Harry's father, which is pretty cool. All right, so we are going to start here, right here, and we are going to read the last few pages of our book. Madame Pomfrey, the matron, this is kind of like the nurse, was a very nice woman, but very strict. Just 5 minutes, Harry pleaded. Absolutely not. You let Professor Dumbledore in. Well, of course, that was the headmaster. Quite different. You need rest. I am resting. Look, lying down and everything. Oh, go on, Madame Pomfrey. Oh, very well, she said, but 5 minutes only. And she let Ron and Hermione in. Harry! Hermione looked ready to fling her arms around him again, but Harry was glad she held herself in as his head was still very sore. Oh, Harry, we were sure you were going to... Dumbledore was so worried. The whole school's talking about it, said Ron. What really happened? It was one of those rare occasions when the true story is even more strange and exciting than the wild rumors. Harry told them everything about Quirrell, the mirror, the stone, and Voldemort. Ron and Hermione were a very good audience. They gasped in all the right places. When Harry told them what was under Quirrell's turban, Hermione screamed out loud. So the stone's gone, said Ron finally. Flamel's just gonna die. That's what I said. But Dumbledore thinks, what was it? To the well-organized mind, death is but the next great adventure. I always said he was off his rocker, said Ron, looking quite impressed at how mad his hero was. So off his rocker means, it means crazy. That's figurative language, right? So what happened to you two? Said Harry. Well, I got back all right, said Hermione. I brought Ron round. That took a while. And we were dashing up to the owlery to contact Dumbledore when we met him in the entrance hall. He already knew. He just said, Harry's gone after him, hasn't he? And he hurtled off to the 3rd floor. Do you think he meant you to do it? Said Ron, sending you your father's cloak and everything. Well, said Hermione exploded. If he did, and I mean to say... That's terrible. You could have been killed. No, it isn't, said Harry thoughtfully. He's a funny man, Dumbledore. I think he sort of wanted to give me a chance. I think he knows more or less everything that goes on here, you know. I reckon he had a pretty good idea we were going to try, and instead of stopping us, he just taught us enough to help. I don't think it was an accident he let me find out how the mirror worked. It's almost like he thought I had the right to face Voldemort if I could. Yeah, Dumbledore's barking all right, said Ron proudly. Listen, you got to be up for the end of the year feast tomorrow. The points are all in, and Slytherin won, of course. You missed the last Quidditch match. We were steamrolled by Ravenclaw without you. But the food'll be good. At that moment, Madame Pomfrey bustled over. You had nearly 15 minutes. Now out! She said firmly. After a good night's sleep, Harry felt nearly back to normal. I want to go to the feast, he told Madame Pomfrey as she straightened his many sweet boxes. I can, can't I? Professor Dumbledore says you are allowed to go, she said sniffily, as though, in her opinion, Professor Dumbledore didn't realize how risky feats could be. And you have another visitor. Oh, good, said Harry. Who is it? Hagrid sidled through the door as he spoke. As usual, when he was indoors, Hagrid looked too big to be allowed. He sat down next to Harry, took one look at him, and burst into tears. It's all my ruddy fault, he sobbed. Pause here. Why does Hagrid feel like it's his fault? Yeah, right? I told that evil git how to get past Fluffy. I told him. It was the only thing he didn't know, and I told him. Yeah, you could have died. And all for a dragon egg. I'll never drink again. I should be chucked out of made to live as a muggle. Hagrid, said Harry, shocked to see Hagrid shaking with grief and remorse, great tears leaking down into his beard. Hagrid, he'd have found out somehow. This is Voldemort we're talking about. He'd have found out even if you hadn't told him. You could have died, sobbed Hagrid. And don't say the name. Voldemort, Harry bellowed, and Hagrid was so shocked he stopped crying. I've met him, and I'm calling him by his name. Please cheer up, Hagrid. We saved the stone. It's gone. He can't use it. Have a chocolate frog. I've got loads. Hagrid wiped his nose on the back of his hand and said, That reminds me, I got you a present. It's not a stoat sandwich, is it? Said Harry anxiously. And at last Hagrid gave a weak chuckle. Nah. Dumbledore gave me the day off yesterday to fix it. Of course, he should have sacked me instead. Anyway, I got you this. It seemed to be a handsome leather-covered book. Harry opened it curiously. It was full of wizard photographs. Smiling and waving at him from every page were his mother and father. Sent owls off to all your parents' old school friends, asking for photos. Knew you didn't have any. D'you like it? Harry couldn't speak, but Hagrid understood. So pause there and think about why Harry couldn't speak. Yeah, he finally has some pictures of his parents. He finally has pictures of them, and he can look at them whenever he wants. Harry made his way down to the end-of-the-year feast alone that night. He had been held up by Madame Pomfrey's fussing about, insisting on giving him one last checkup, so the great hall was already full. It was decked out in the Slytherin colors of green and silver to celebrate Slytherin's winning the House Cup for the 7th year in a row. A huge banner showing the Slytherin serpent covered the wall behind the high table. When Harry walked in, there was a sudden hush, and everybody started talking loudly at once. He slipped into a seat between Ron and Hermione at the Gryffindor table and tried to ignore the fact that people were standing up to look for him. Fortunately, Dumbledore arrived moments later. The babble died away. Another year gone, Dumbledore said cheerfully, and I must trouble you with an old man's... Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is Dumbledore. Rewind. Another year gone, said Dumbledore cheerfully, and I must trouble you with an old man's wheezing waffle before we sink our teeth in to our delicious feast. What a year it has been! Hopefully your heads are all a little bit fuller than they were. You had the whole summer ahead to get them nice and empty before next year starts. Now, as I understand it, the House Cup here needs awarding, and the points stand thus. In 4th place, Gryffindor with 312 points. In 3rd, Hufflepuff with 352. Ravenclaw have 426, and Slytherin 472. A storm of cheering and stamping broke out from the Slytherin table. Harry could see Draco Malfoy banging his goblet on the table. It was a sickening sight. Yes, well done, Slytherin, said Dumbledore. However, recent events must be taken into account. The room went very still. The Slytherin smiles faded a little. Said Dumbledore. I have a few
Last-minute points to dish out. Let me see, yes. First, to Mr. Ronald Weasley.
Ron went purple in the face. He looked like a radish with a bad sunburn.
For the best played game of for the best played game of chess Hogwarts has seen in many years. I award Gryffindor House 50 points.
Gryffindor cheers nearly raised the bewitched ceiling. The stars overhead seemed to quiver. Percy could be heard telling the other prefects,
My brother, you know, my youngest brother, got past McGonagall's giant chess set.
At last there was silence again.
Second, to Miss Hermione Granger, for the use of cool logic in the face of fire, I award Gryffindor House 50 points.
Hermione buried her face in her arms. Harry strongly suspected she had burst into tears. Gryffindors up and down the table were beside themselves. They were 100 points up.
Third, to Mr. Harry Potter,
said Dumbledore. The room went deadly quiet.
For pure nerve and outstanding courage, I award Gryffindor House 60 points.
The din was deafening. And remember, din is like a loud noise. For all those who could add up while yelling themselves hoarse knew that Gryffindor now had 472 points, exactly the same as Slytherin. They had drawn for the House Cup. If only Dumbledore had given Harry just one more point. Dumbledore raised his hand and the room gradually fell silent.
There are all kinds of courage, said Dumbledore, smiling. It takes a great deal of bravery to stand up to our enemies, but just as much to stand up to our friends. I therefore award 10 points to Neville Longbottom.
Someone standing outside the great hall might have thought some sort of explosion had taken place. So loud was the noise that erupted from the Gryffindor table. Harry, Ron, and Hermione stood up. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to stand up and... Oh, here we go. Yell and cheer. Oh, there's a picture of them all. Yell and cheer as Neville, white with shock, disappeared under a pile of people hugging him. He had never won so much as a point for Gryffindor before. Harry, still cheering, nudged Ron in the ribs and pointed at Malfoy, who couldn't have looked more stunned and horrified if he had the body bind curses put on him. So there's Neville, right? Ron, Harry, and Hermione, and look at how happy they are.
Which means,
Dumbledore called over the storm of applause, for even Ravenclaw and Hufflepuff were celebrating the downfall of Slytherin.
We need a little change of decoration.
He clapped his hands, and in an instant the green hangings became scarlet, and silver became gold. The huge Gryffindor serpent vanished, and a towering Gryffindor lion took its place. Snape was shaking Professor McGonagall's hand with a horrible, forced smile. He caught Harry's eye, and Harry knew at once that Snape's feelings toward him had not changed one jot. But this didn't worry Harry. It seemed as though life would be back to normal next year, or as normal as it ever was at Hogwarts. It was the best evening of Harry's life, better than winning at Quidditch or Christmas or knocking out mountain trolls. He would never, ever forget tonight. Harry had almost forgotten that the exam results were still to come, but they did. To their greatest surprise, both he and Ron passed with good marks. Hermione, of course, came top of the year. Even Neville scraped through, his good herbology mark making up for his abysmal potions one. They had hoped that Goyle, who was almost as stupid as he was mean, might be thrown out, but he had passed too. It was a shame, but Ron said you couldn't have everything in life. And suddenly their wardrobes were empty, their trunks were packed, Neville's toad was found lurking in the corner of the toilets. Notes were handed out to all the students, warning them not to use magic over the holidays.
I always hope they'll forget to give us these, said Fred Weasley sadly.
Hagrid was there to take them down to the fleet of boats that sailed across the lake. They were boarding the Hogwarts Express, talking and laughing as the countryside became greener and tidier, eating Bertie Bott's every flavored beans as they sped past Muggle towns, pulling off their wizard robes and putting on jackets and coats, pulling into platform 9 3/4 at King's Cross Station. It took quite a while for them to get off the all. It took quite a while for all of them to get off the platform. A wizened old guard was up by the ticket barrier, letting them go through the gate in 2s and 3s, so they didn't attract the attention by all bursting out of a solid wall at once and alarming the Muggles. Uh-oh. Oh, hopefully it's still recording. Alarming the Muggles. "You must come and stay this summer," said Ron. "Both of you. I'll send an owl." "Thanks," said Harry. "I'll need something." And I'm going to let you see this picture of, as we end, that's the end of our thing. I'll let you see this picture of Hogwarts as we end the book. I need something to look forward to." People jostled them as they moved forward towards the gate back to the Muggle world. Some of them called, "Bye, Harry." "See you, Potter." "Still famous," said Ron, grinning at him. "I'm not where I'm going, I promise you," said Harry. He, Ron, and Hermione passed through the gateway together. "There he is, Mum. There he is. Look." It was Jenny Weasley, Ron's younger sister, but she wasn't pointing at Ron. "Harry Potter," she squealed. "Look, Mum, I can see." "Be quiet, Jenny. It's rude to point." Miss Weasley smiled down at them. "Busy here?" she said. "Very," said Harry. "Thanks for the fudge and the jumper, Mrs. Weasley." "Oh, it was nothing, dear." "Ready, are you?" "Oh, no. Ready, are you?" It was Uncle Vernon. Still purple-faced, still mustached, still looking furious at the nerve of Harry, carrying an owl in a cage in a station full of ordinary people. Behind him stood Aunt Petunia and Dudley, looking terrified at the very sight of Harry. "You must be Harry's family," said Mrs. Weasley. "You must be Harry's family," said Mrs. Weasley. "In a matter of speaking," said Uncle Vernon. "Hurry up, boy, we haven't got all day." He walked away. Harry hung back for a last word with Ron and Hermione. "See you over the summer, then." "I hope you have a good holiday," said Hermione, looking uncertainly after Uncle Vernon, shocked that anyone could be so unpleasant. "Oh, I will," said Harry. And they were surprised at the grin that was spreading all over his face. They don't know we're not allowed to use music. They don't know we're not allowed to use magic at home. I'm going to have a lot of fun this summer with Dudley. That's it. We have reached the end. We have reached the end of our book. And you have now read the whole book, or the whole book of Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So what was your favorite part? Who was your favorite character? All right. I am so glad that we got to finish this book while we were together. We will start a new book as we come back from spring break.